Thanks for tuning in to the In the Blind podcast here on the Artemis channel. Today we are doing our first meeting with Clem, who's taking the Artemis channel all the way up to Alaska and the North Pole branch.
We are getting irritated with Clem.
It's a fawn feather?
Yeah.
So we are going to talk about his journey up the Alaska Highway, and Clem's going to do a lot of the talking on this one. I'm just going to sit here and go, yeah, really, that's cool. So him and his wife just moved up to Alaska, and we'll be doing some hunting and some fishing, and he'll have some content for us as he gets stuff up there and gets his life settled. But we're going to talk about the journey from New Hampshire all the way across our country and up through, where'd you go, Saskatchewan and Yukon,
Alberta,
Alberta. Okay.
BC, then Yukon, then back into the US and Alaska.
Oh my God. So yeah, tell us about what it was like the moment you pulled out of here.
Oh, well, we said our goodbyes and our see you laters and carefully pulled out of the driveway with the trailer, reset the odometer, and we were on our way. And that was Monday afternoon. We headed off and got on the highway out of New Hampshire, said goodbye to New Hampshire, went across Vermont, which was the first real test of how well the Highlander was going to do with that big old 6x12 cargo trailer. It was very interesting. It was a little scary at times, but she handled it really well, thankfully. Didn't take long to get into New York State. Just after dark, stopped for gas and remembered that the trailer guys said, after 100 miles, check the torque on your wheel nuts. Okay, so Wendy went into the gas station. I pulled out the old torque wrench, and a couple of those lug nuts I got almost a full turn on before it clicked. Ugh. And yeah, I made the same face probably. Wendy came out. I said, whoa, good thing that I had the torque wrench handy. Yeah, those guys were right.
Oh my God.
So we continued on through New York State all through the night.
So let's back up just a little bit. I want to remind everybody that he basically downsized his whole life into what, a 6x12 trailer?
That's correct.
Yeah, I don't know how you did it, but you did it.
It was crazy. It was a lot of stuff we thought we were going to take. They didn't make the cut. The trailer was packed. I don't know how close it was to capacity weight wise, but it turned out that I balanced it really, really well. Good. And had we known more at the time, we'd have probably flipped the hitch over and flipped the ball over to give us a little bit more clearance.
I wasn't going to tell on you.
That there'll be a few things that I'm going to mention that would be probably words of experience for anyone who's going to make the journey. They might want to figure that out.
So let me ask you, I know you did the first leg really all through the States, correct? It was at night.
Correct.
Any regrets on doing that at night?
Absolutely not.
No, huh?
Absolutely not. I knew from driving to New Mexico that it's easier driving at night. And this was in the summer. This was mid-June. And I just knew that it was going to be hot during the day. It was going to be busy during the day. We were very fortunate to get behind a lot of very cooperative truckers. And once I got used to how fast they were going and how fast I was comfortable going with the trailer, it worked out really well, especially considering that my range was cut down to 200 miles on a tank of gas. So at 150 miles, we were looking for a gas station.
That's not far.
It's not. And the closer we got to the Alaska highway, the more I went, oh boy, that's not a lot of miles.
Well, let's not get ahead. Let's kind of go through.
We made it just outside of Cleveland the first day.
But you had mentioned across New York, you hit something.
Oh yeah, there was something medium sized. Let's say small deer, large dog ish. Not sure what it was. And I had just enough time to scoot over a little bit so I wouldn't run over it with the tires.
Yeah.
And the foot on the hitch hit something pretty hard, and I felt it. It was nasty. And at the next gas station, which we pulled into, this was like our third stop for gas, at 2:30 in the morning, and the range was down to 3 miles on the computer. And Wendy was looking at me very seriously. She said, let's not do that again. So while I was filling up, I went around I always walked around the trailer, but I got around the back and there was gore on the back lid of the Highlander and on the front of the trailer. So by the time she got done taking care of business and coming back out, I was out there with the squeegee, cleaning off the red
off the back of the trailer. Oh, that's gross.
I did the back of the Highlander, and she did the front of the trailer pretty much.
Oh.
And that continued. We kept doing that there were several stops.
How about the next poor bastard that used that squeegee on his windshield?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That was pretty awful. But that's one of the very few times that low clearance really came into play. I mean, pulling in and out of gas stations and stuff, there are plenty of times when that foot scraped, but I never got hung up. It never got hit hard. It worked out really well.
So Cleveland, you said.
We got to Cleveland, stayed in a nice place. We went about 14 hours, got to almost Cleveland, spent the night, got up, went pretty much through Cleveland, right by the stadium, right by the Browns stadium.
The Cleveland Browns select.
We could see. And that was late afternoon, because we kind of got a jump on it. Went through the rest of the way through Ohio, Indiana. Now we had every intention of going a little bit south and direct west to avoid Chicago. I figured probably don't want to drive through Chicago with the Highlander and the trailer.
Not Chicago, Chicago.
And I remember at one point Steve going, you really don't want to drive through Chicago.
Don't want
period. Go around it.
It's gonna be like
so I had a route.
As I said, it was gonna be like driving through New York at midnight. It's still busy for those of us who are from, rural New Hampshire.
So that last gas stop before we got there, somehow that my waypoint bringing us around Chicago came out of the phone. Next thing I knew, Wendy says, we're in Chicago, meaning we're in the middle of Chicago. So found at
night.
It was midnight.
Okay.
It was just before midnight when we hit the really wide expressways that run right through the middle of Chicago. Got behind a tow truck that was at a reasonable speed in the middle of, 8 lanes, and just acted like a rock in the river and just let everything go around us because they were flying in and out. It was crazy. Because we were doing 60, 65 the whole time, and there were cars going by so fast we couldn't tell what it was.
Oh my God.
Diving in and out, back and forth. So we got Past that, Wendy does not ever want to go to Chicago again. Don't blame her. Got on the other side, stopped for gas, went until morning. We went about another 14 hours. Um,
Minneapolis.
I should have written down somewhere around the Minneapolis area. I forget
Right.
exactly where, but stopped at another nice place. Spent the night, did it all over again. And then got into Michigan, North Dakota. North Dakota was pretty. The roads in North Dakota are very narrow and very fast. Luckily, once you start getting up that far, there isn't a lot of traffic, but there are a lot of semis.
And you're
So-
on Interstate 10, correct?
I believe that's correct.
All right.
Yeah, it's very narrow. It's 2 lanes, 70 miles an hour. Hold on to your hat.
Narrow 93 north, the other side of the notch, narrow or worse?
Definitely at least that narrow. I mean,
Okay.
even more narrow than 106. It
Okay.
was with that trailer, I had to pick where I wanted the inside tire to be as close to the line as I dared and just concentrate on that. I wasn't even concentrating on the offside. And if I'd have got off the road, which luckily all of those roads had lines on them, so it wasn't too bad trying to stay in the lane.
Yeah.
But if I'd have got off of on the right hand side, we were done. We were done. Would have sucked through. It was all soft shoulder, all sloping down. Goodbye trailer.
So this is coming into Western North Dakota.
Yeah, going right through. We went straight across North Dakota and into Montana. We went through a Painted Rock National Forest at one point, which
Yeah.
was amazing. It was beautiful. We saw bison there, a few odds and ends, other critters, deer, lots of horses, some farms with cattle, that kind of stuff. It was nice. Next day, 18 hours, pushed all the way through in
Great Falls.
yeah, but before that, we thought we wanted to stop for the night, and after we got into Montana,
Yeah.
but then there was nowhere to stop. Everywhere was full, so we kept going. We got a fantastic breakfast, and we said we'll just push on, and we went all the way. Jamestown, I think, was the last stop we made before Great Falls,
All right.
and the GPS said, next stop, Great Falls. Wow. We were so glad to see that.
Yeah. 18, and that was an 18-hour day.
That was an 18-hour day.
That's a lot of pain. Yeah. I'm also
Got into Great Falls. And Wendy's not driving any of this, by the way.
yeah.
She was navigating. Got into Great Falls. Pulled right into the aunt and uncle's house and crashed. And they said, how long are you going to stay? Well, we're thinking this was Thursday afternoon.
Uh-huh.
And I said, well, we were thinking, we could probably be out of your hair, Saturday morning, because we just want to swap around. From here on out, we'll be able to go during the day. That'll be better. The traffic will let up. And they said, oh yeah, you definitely want to go during the day so you can see everything. Yeah, well, sounds like a good plan. And we ended up staying until Monday. We had a great time in Great Falls.
If I think of it, I'll go on and I'll pull the pictures of you guys on the lake and throw them in here. And
that was cool. And
like
if
home
you get
videos,
that picture of us with the Melissa Lynn band,
yeah.
we saw them at a couple of places in Great Falls. That was a time.
Is that
Was quite
family?
an experience. Yes.
Okay.
Melissa is my cousin by marriage. Married my cousin Peter. Tremendous performer. Tremendous.
Okay.
So got an oil change and a bath for the truck, hooked it all up again, and Monday morning we were back on the road. Now the whole time I was getting apprehensive about crossing the border.
Once we cross that border, we're on our own.
Sure.
You know, I knew that I had taken everything out that, you know, would get us into trouble. I'd read all kinds of stuff on the internet. Right.
You spent a sizable amount of money
Yeah.
and shipped all of your guns via FFL
Correct.
from New Hampshire to a gun shop in Alaska that your family was familiar with.
Correct.
Ammo didn't make the trip.
No, ammo I spread around. There was a lot more of that than I realized that I had. But I did send
Prepper.
2 big boxes full of just magazines.
Yeah.
Because even the magazine laws are crazy up there. There were some that were allowable and some that were not. And I said, look, if I'm going to ship some of them, I'm going to ship all of them. So I didn't have any magazines in the trailer either. Didn't have any ammunition. Didn't have any firearms. I had all my empty gun cases. I had all my empty pistol boxes.
Not all your empty gun cases.
Well, the big one. You get the big one. Knives. There were a bunch of knives that I sent that I figured that they might give us trouble for. Just didn't want any problems.
So you got to the border and they said, "Hi, nice to see you. Have a good day."
The Canadian side, we pulled in there at Sweetgrass. Waited our turn in line, got up to the window, gave him all of our paperwork, talked to him for a few minutes. He asked a bunch of questions, you know, about alcohol and fresh fruit and cash. Everyone wants to know if you got 10,000 or more in cash. Not close to it, but thanks for asking. What's in the trailer? Well, it's all our household goods. We're moving to Alaska. Oh, really? So he never came out of the booth. He never called anybody over. They never looked under the trailer, in the trailer, or in the truck. I got all of our paperwork back from him, and we're out of there in 4 or 5 minutes. We're in Canada. Hey, here we go. So we started off. We were headed, we wanted to get at least to Calgary.
Yeah.
We were hoping to get closer to Dawson Creek. Dawson Creek, once you get up into Alberta, and just as you cross into British Columbia, you get to Dawson Creek. That's the claim to fame is that that's mile 0 of the Alaska Highway.
All right. Well, let me share that portion here, unless you're going back to Calgary for more story.
The only thing we stayed at a really nice place in Calgary. That was about it.
All right. So here's coming into Dawson Creek.
Oh, there it is. Okay. Yeah, all through Alberta is beautiful in its own way. It's lots of agricultural land, lots of farms, lots of cattle. It's gorgeous. It really is. It's a lot like Montana. Not a whole lot of big anything except acreage and silos and barns. It's really pretty.
So what we're looking at here is this, would you say, a main part of Dawson Creek?
Oh, this is the main part of Dawson Creek.
This is it. Okay.
Yeah. You drive in through here. And there are a couple of different markers.
Yep.
On the right, you'll see a marker.
I'll put an arrow up so people can see the sign.
And it'll say Dairy Queen over there.
Oh, yeah, Dairy Queen.
Dairy Queen mocked us the entire way through Canada. Had no idea how many Dairy Queens there were. There were billboards and signs everywhere for Dairy Queen. We were never able to get to a Dairy Queen.
That's hysterical.
This here, when you come around this rotary, this is pretty much the center of town. On the left down that street is the official where they have all the flags, and this is the big mile marker and so forth. We stopped at the Welcome Center. Now, prior to leaving, I mean, over the winter, I got the Guide to the Alaska Highway, which I read through, and that's got about your driving experience, all the wonderful things that you're going to see.
Is that riveting? or is it a textbook?
It's kind of a textbook.
Yeah.
What I really wanted was, where are the hotels, where are the gas stations, where are the maps, and so forth. That one didn't do it for me. So I picked up the Alaska Highway Travel Guide. Okay. The best stops. And this actually names the stops along the way. But it doesn't really tell you what there are for services. This is mostly a guide to RV parks
Touristy stuff.
and sightseeing stuff
Okay.
is what this one is. I mean, it's got a big log in the back with day number such and such on the date, starting and ending, and the temperature and all of that, which is cool.
You didn't
Especially
handle
if
this.
you got a kid that can write. You give this to him in the back seat, and you say, "Write down everything you see." It'll keep him busy.
Okay, so
Yeah.
you didn't handle this. This was not a sightseeing adventure for you guys. You were working.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And it turned out to be more so because we were less flexible because we were towing the trailer.
Okay.
Everything kind of became about the trailer and keeping the speed down and, finding gas stations. Well, at the Tourist Information Center, I found the most valuable piece of equipment we had on the entire trip, talking to the girl behind the register. And she gave me this pamphlet, Campground and Gas Station Guide. Okay. And it's got a listing of all the towns that have stuff, what the services are,
Oh,
if they're
that's
open
handy.
24 hours. And it's got the distance from Dawson Creek in kilometers and in miles. Now, once we got into Canada, there was no more miles. So we switched over everything in the Highlander over to kilometers. So now we had to calculate, well, what's our range in kilometers? When do we have to start panicking about gas? It was in the afternoon when we got into Dawson Creek. And we looked around and said, well, where's the next stop? Well, the next good size place is Fort St. John. And there's a listing here with all of these services that they have. And we looked up hotels. So we ended up staying at a nice place, I think a Best Western in Fort St. John. Spent the night there and started planning out our maps to get through Canada. First thing in the morning, I mean, we got up early and got motivated, got breakfast, and went to Walmart, and I bought 2 gas cans, filled them with gas, strapped them to the top of the trailer on the outside, and said, well, okay, well, for emergency purposes, we have no idea what to expect. That'll at least give us an extra, 10 gallons worth of range. Or
so you bought 2 5-gallon
liters.
cans.
Yep, two 20-liter cans.
Oh my god.
Okay, which is a little over 10 gallons. And just prayed we were never going to have to use it.
And you didn't.
Set out, did another 14-ish hour day. Noted the roads. And if you want to go back to the
I'll
video.
show that because I had a question on this one. See that now?
I got it now.
All right. So is that that looks like gravel to me.
It is not.
Okay.
It's very porous asphalt.
Okay.
A lot of the way is, and you may or may not have markings in the road. Typical speed limit is 100 kilometers. And from my calculations, that's about 65-ish, 70 miles per hour. You can see the semis come barreling down the other side.
And you've got, this river off to, Wendy's side on the passenger side.
Yep.
And it looks like there's been some flooding because stuff had been stacked up. I noticed on one of the videos, I may not have put it out here, but it had rocks from washouts that were then stacked back up on the side of the road.
They're always working on all of these roads.
We're going to save this one. Okay. So that
So
one we just looked at, that was still your British Columbia at that point.
right.
Okay.
And things were going really well, and there's hardly any traffic.
Okay.
Um, lots of places to pull off. You really need to be prepared to pull off if you can't stop real quick, which we couldn't. Um, and lots of places, especially when the closer you get to the Canadian Rockies, and the more breathtaking it gets, then you'll have these pull offs, and a lot of them will have a sign, that's either a graphic of a camera with an arrow, and you're supposed to pull off. And as you drive by this little pull off, you can see that that's where the most trees are, and it's like a little indentation. You'd think there'd be like a white windowless van down there that says free puppies on the side, because you can't see it from the road, and you sure as heck can't see the mountains from down in there because the trees are so tall. So those aren't placed in the right place.
Or
And,
they've overgrown.
oh, they're years overgrown. They
Yeah.
really are.
All
So
right,
as
so-
we go further and further up and up and up into and towards the Canadian Rockies, the road stays about the same. We've learned how to deal with it. We're great. Thankfully, there's not a lot of traffic. It rained on and off. We'd go through a patch of rain, and then it would be nice and clear and dry. Quite a few motorcycles along the way.
That'd be the way to
snowbirds
go,
and things.
huh?
If you've got one of those touring type of deals, like an Africa Twin, or those the BMWs, the Triumph has got one. I forget what they call it.
Yeah.
That sit high and got knobby tires on it. That could be a really fun trip. That could, but I would not want to take a Harley, and I certainly would not want to take a sport bike on it. There's no way. No. The ideal way to do this trip would be to have an RV, something all self-contained, so you could go for a few hours, pull over, stop, have something to eat, enjoy the scenery, take a nap, and then pack up and go for a few more hours. It would just doing it leisurely like that would be a dream. That would be something else.
Cool.
And here we are, white knuckling it in a Highlander with a trailer. Let's get there. We're gonna get there. We're gonna make it.
All right, I'll share this overhanging cliff. Let me get that up here, and you can talk about what that is.
There were places where we got so close into passes like this that were just cut out of the mountainside. It's breathtaking. This one, and there were a couple other places where, as you're going along, and you want to look at everything, you want to see everything, but if you're driving, that's really hard to do.
I'd have had a hard time not pulling over and wetting a line right here along this stretch. I'll tell you what.
That river right there, that was moving so fast that it probably, if you had too big a bait on it, it probably would have snapped your line.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, it was moving. It was white water. But these cliffs on the sides, you'd swear sometimes that they're tipped towards the road. They're hanging towards you instead of away from you in some of these passes. Just incredible. Incredible.
All right, tell me what is going on here. You got some construction, and this looks like a bay. If I didn't know better, I'd say that was the ocean down there.
We were that's like a river that's wide enough to almost be considered a pond or a lake. There was construction. This was actually the first time we had to stop on our side for construction. The road is carved out of that cliff face, and the mountains are all around every direction you look. And it can be really difficult to stop and take pictures or video because the video doesn't look like what you're actually looking at. It's so easy just to stand there and stare at it just
Yeah.
because it is amazing.
It's breathtaking just on that little camera that you're using, and I can only imagine what it was like in person. Let's talk about wildlife.
We especially through Alberta, British Columbia, lots of farms again, cattle, lots of beekeepers had bee boxes set up right
Really?
there by the highway. Must have seen a dozen in different places, spread out through Canada. Deer. There are signs everywhere, that tell you that, okay, there's going to be deer here, there's going to be moose here, there's going to be elk, there's going to be bison. And there are a couple of places that are thick with bison, and they have up-to-date signs with flashing messages that tell you, between these 2 mile markers, you need to take care because the bison are in. And we did get a little bit of footage of the bison.
Yeah.
We saw
I've got bison here.
a couple of black bears before we got into the bison area. Pretty early on, in British Columbia or late Alberta, there was a juvenile moose on the driver's side.
Yeah. So here's here's the first buffalo that we've got.
And one of them has a numbered
collared. Yeah.
Yep. That one on the right, that was a big animal. That was a big animal.
And then you've got another one here coming up that's walking on the passenger side again.
Just loping along, like minding their own business. Don't really care. Saw a couple of big groups of them.
Big groups. How many big groups?
There was one group that was a dozen or more. There was one almost as big, and then there were a few scattered here and there. That was a good size one right there. The one thing that we were upset that we missed is the last day. Once we got into Alaska, there was a big grizzly right beside the road, and it was impressive. It just looked mean, and I think I said at one point to you that we saw that and we were getting tired too. And Wendy said, if you stop the truck, I'm going to have to kill you. And we just kept going, and he was walking against traffic on the side of the road, just minding his own business. But there were on the bison side, in the breakdown lanes, because the road was a lot wider there. There were big piles of scat. I mean, big piles of scat. You don't want to hit them with the car. Went through another section early in the morning where it was all rabbits. That was in the Yukon, and couldn't count how many rabbits we saw. They were just, for a few miles, they were just everywhere, coming out into sun themselves first thing in the morning. The last morning in Yukon, we came out of the hotel and started up the road, and there were ravens in the road, and there were several, and I was getting up to speed, but I wasn't up to speed. And this one raven was just standing there in the middle of the road, and I kept saying, "Get out of the road, dumbass." And he didn't, and he didn't make it.
After that, the rabbits.
Coming down through the backside of the Canadian Rockies was a little tricky. There was a lot of, like I said, there were a lot of semis, and this time of year is the time of year where they get all of their construction done. So there was quite a bit of construction. I think there are a couple clips there of us going down some pretty steep grades, probably following trucks. We just stuck with whoever, and if they were going too fast, we let them go.
Yeah.
Didn't want to, really did not want to beat the heck out of the Highlander, and really did not want to bust an axle on the trailer. That would have been very bad. The one of the things that we had considered driving out to Seattle and getting on a ferry. That would have been a
when you were
really
in
cool
Montana.
trip. Yeah, from Great Falls.
Yeah.
That would have been a cool trip too, and wouldn't have had to go through Canada. We would have missed the Rockies, which I'm really glad we did it. But it would have taken a lot of the beating out of both of the vehicles. They were booked until the end of August, so that wasn't even really a thing. So
Really?
yeah, and I once I did a search for that, I started getting all of these auto transport companies that wanted to move the Highlander, and I kept telling them it's not just the Highlander. There's a 12-foot trailer on it. Oh, we'll get back to you. They're still getting back to me now, a month later, sending me all of these outrageous prices.
Yeah. Well, I did that. I had a police cruiser that I was looking to ship to Kansas City a year and a half ago.
Mhm.
I still get email, so you're gonna have to tell them to leave you alone.
I believe it. I believe it. It was the constant texts for about 4 days. It's still telling him to stop. But anyways, it might have been worth it if I had, instead of wanting to ship the Highlander and the trailer, is ship the trailer from Great Falls to Fairbanks. And that it would have doubled our range on the Highlander, would have made us a little more versatile, and probably would have sped up that part of the trip maybe by a day. So it was a trade-off, 6 to 1 and half a dozen of another.
But without the trailer, you'd have been more apt to
yeah, we would have been able to pull off and stop and
look at stuff. Yeah.
Do some side trips and stuff. Once we got through the Canadian Rockies there, it really became a chore because if we're coming up on Destruction Bay here.
Well, I want to before we get to Destruction Bay, the last you said the capital of Yukon was a place that you stopped, or you just drove through?
We had wanted to make it to Whitehorse.
Okay.
And we had figured Whitehorse would be the last overnight stop. And it was really conveniently located. And after Whitehorse, there's really not much as far as services.
Yeah.
So I at least want to get as close to Whitehorse as I could, and that's the capital of Yukon Territory.
Yeah.
We didn't quite make it to Whitehorse the night before, but we got close enough. We did drive through Whitehorse because there was a billboard for Dairy Queen. So I turned off of the highway and went down. We drove through Whitehorse.
No Dairy Queen.
Which is Whitehorse is probably about like Keene. I'm gonna say the size of Keene, New Hampshire. About the same amount of services. The highway goes around it, and it's pretty tightly packed in together. And we went through because the gas stop we had planned on is just on the other side of Whitehorse. So we had figured we were going to stay there for the night, get up, do our thing, hit gas, and go. But it didn't work out that way. But we did drive down through and then hit the gas station on the way out of town. And just as we got there, looking at the map, planning the next stop, I realized that if we hadn't gone through Whitehorse, we had stayed on the highway, and we would have driven right by the damn Dairy Queen. So Dairy Queen mocked us the entire trip.
Yeah, you said that earlier. Yeah.
Yeah. There's one Dairy Queen in Alaska. It's in Anchorage, which is about 6 hours from here.
You must have soft serve in Fairbanks.
Oh, we do. We've got all kinds of other stuff. But
you guys sell ice cream now.
Yeah.
The Naughty Shop sells ice cream.
Naughty Shop has ice cream, and people come from all over all year round to get it. So it's a big draw.
Just because there's no GD Dairy Queens.
Nope. It actually the White Horse, and then there was Haynes Junction, is a pretty good sized place, which we didn't have to stop.
And of course, cell service on this whole trip. At this point, once you got out of Dawson Creek, cell service had to be spotty at best.
Oh, absolutely. There was less service than there was times without it. Long stretches, and would turn on the radio, hit it on scan, and it would just go around and around and around and around with no radio stations. So after it went around and around for a few minutes, Wendy would pop in a disc and would repeat that all the whole way.
Yeah, I noticed in a couple of the clips, Pink Floyd was a recurring theme, as I would have expected.
Yes. Well, trying to keep the blood pressure low and trying to keep concentration levels.
Yeah.
We did go through some other mixed CDs and stuff. We had a variety.
Yeah.
So
let's talk about Destruction Bay. I'll share that, and I left the voiceover on Destruction Bay in there, so you can hear Wendy talk about how much she loves the
signage.
The signage, yeah.
That was it really is kind of you drive around the bay, which is part of this lake, and there's nothing there, but right here you get into where there's a bunch of signs that tell you sheep, and beware of sheep, and be slow, and we're looking for them up on those cliffs.
Yeah, so I fell for it as well. You come around this corner, and I hear one of you guys say, "There's one."
Yeah, that would be Wendy.
Okay. And it's up here on the left. Yeah, let's listen to Wendy.
Yeah, there's a little white. There he is. Yeah.
Some kind of sign. I don't know. It's a sign. It's the shape of a sheep. You fool.
All right, we're gonna save this part here.
You got to realize that by the time we got this far across Canada, we're pretty upset with Canadians. From having to convert to kilometers and having to pay for gas by the liter, which was generally about $2 a liter. So I was paying $8 a gallon for gas. At Destruction Bay, I think was my most expensive fill up, which was $2.25 a liter. To fill up the Highlander, it was $105.01.
Yeah, you talk about that in the next clip.
That hurt.
This next clip, you go on a rant that's going to be probably 4 minutes. So I'm going to let that go. And then if you want to comment this afterwards, it kind of stands on its own.
Well, before it starts, I mean, just realize how tired we are at this point, and we're pushing. We know that at this point, there's nowhere to stay. Okay, there's going to be picking and choosing, trying to make it for gas, even if we have to short trip it. Go 100 kilometers and fill up, because the next stop may be 150 or close to 200, which we got kind of close, but not too far. But we were tired, and we were getting a little bit punchy, and the Devil's trailer was attached to our rear deck, and it was chasing us.
Well, here you go. We're gonna let you narrate it.
Just past mile marker 1298. Mile marker, not just kilometer marker. We've been dealing with for 3 days. Okay?
3 days.
We're on miles now. We got up this morning at 5, 7, plus 14,
What's the time?
plus the time change is 15 hours. Sun, it's what? It's 6:45. Sun is way up in the sky. No idea when that sumbitch is coming down. No. The road for the last 150 miles, it's like a battle zone. Unbelievable. Sometimes we can't do 30 miles an hour. It's so bad. Don't ask me what that is in kilometers. I don't fucking care. Okay? Now, no, it just went behind the trees. It's a mountain. We just went, I swear to Christ, some UFOs came out of that thing. It's a little weird.
A little punchy.
We're on about 10 miles from Toke Junction. We're gonna get some gas. That might be the last gas stop. We're not sure. But we didn't break into the gas that's on the roof of the trailer. We're able to make it from station to station. We filled up a lot. I had two fill-ups in the Canadian Rockies that were $95. And I had one after that that was $105.01. It's unfreaking believable.
Is that penny?
I think it was $2.25 a liter. I'm so happy to be back in the US.
Were you legit emotional here?
Oh yeah. Oh, we were punchy. We were really punchy.
Missed a couple
We were,
one of them was a really
holding back to when we pulled up to the customs
got that on
in Alaska.
Yeah.
We were emotional.
too late.
So at
And
this point, you're in Alaska.
we're in Alaska here.
Okay.
Stop this truck.
We're almost to Tok, I think,
That was in Canada.
because we stopped there in Tok at Fast Eddie's
Customs
and
we
had
got
dinner, and that was awesome.
Canada. Nice
But
guy.
we're
Talked to
getting a
us
little
lot.
punchy, yeah. And we knew that we still had another
From the show.
3+ hours.
I told them,
But stopping to get something to eat, that really
"Nah, nah,
can change things a lot.
go into the
Yeah.
US." Customs in the US took what? 18 seconds? Gave her the paperwork, told her where we were going. Have a nice day. Enjoy your trip.
That's customs.
We could have had a nuclear
I
warhead
could
back
have a
there.
nuke in that fucking trailer. Bales of cocaine. Oh shit. Okay, it's enough silliness.
It was too. After reading all the horror stories, oh no, if you have a blade over so many inches, they're gonna confiscate your vehicle and lock you up and this. And if you smell like cannabis, they're gonna arrest you. And oh yeah, they asked all those questions, and we get to the US and they said that a lot of times it's harder to get, back into the US. They're a lot more strict about the rules and all of that. And like I said, it took about 18 seconds. We handed her the paperwork. She asked us a couple of questions, want to know if we had fruit. And she handed everything back and said, have a great trip, and closed the window. There were a few people. There were a couple of vehicles that were pulled over. They were doing inspections on, but nobody was looking at us. Nobody was waving at us. Nobody wanted us to pull over. And I said, is that it? Do we just leave? It's like they had already forgotten about us. So I started to pull forward, and I pulled past this check station really slow, looking at the officers. They didn't care. So I kept going, saying, well, if they wanted us to stop, they're going to chase us. So we took off. And then the roads were really great for a little while, and then they got nasty for a while, and yeah, it was quite the experience. Especially, like I said, that last 150 miles, that road was just brutal.
And you did that that last trip from the Alaskan border to now home. You did that in one shot.
Oh yeah, yeah. We did from Whitehorse to North Pole. It was almost 20 hours driving,
Ugh.
and once we could smell the border, we're like, we don't care how long it takes. We're just going.
Mm.
You know, the Devil's Trailer's behind us. We're going. And I think I said on the video, oh, I didn't say on the video, but I turned to Wendy. I said, you know what? And this was after we were going through the mountains again in Alaska. You know, you have to go
Yeah.
through some mountains after you go past the checkpoint. And I said, you know, if that trailer twisted off the back of that hitch, rolled down into that canyon, burst into flames, I wouldn't stop. Nope, I wouldn't care. You'd have to pay me to care. It's insured. There's a couple sentimental things I'd cry over. I said, I'll take the cash. Yeah. And she agreed. She said, yeah, think we can pull that off? Oh,
So you're
getting
getting
to the point
adjusted.
where it's a challenge.
So you're getting adjusted now that you're essentially in your new home now.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
Started work.
we're in North Pole,
Yeah.
which is we're about 15 minutes out of Fairbanks. We're about 15 minutes from the store in Salcha,
Okay.
the Naughty Shop, and everybody, of course, everybody knows the Naughty Shop around here, and getting paperwork has been kind of a scramble. You know, you need certain papers to get certain other papers, and they want you to have certain documentation to be able to get a post office box or get the truck registered, or we've got all of that stuff. We get a PO box and all of that. So the last thing tomorrow, now that I have my my conditional work offer letter, now I can go to DMV and they'll swap over my CDL, and I'll do that tomorrow. And it looks like Tuesday morning I'll do a ride along for a transport run, which will probably be mine 2 days a week between Fairbanks and Tok, and it's like 400-mile round trip. And it looks
Toke's the
fun.
border town on the
Yeah,
Yukon.
it's a couple miles inside the border, a
Okay.
couple hours inside the border, and it's about 3 to 4 hours out of Fairbanks.
Okay.
So that'll be interesting.
Tell me what you expect, and then we can kind of wrap this up. Tell me what you're thinking is going to be for the Artemis Channel North Pole branch, and what you think you're going to have for content for those of you who have hung on this long and listened to every word, and make sure you hit that subscribe button if you haven't done that already. We appreciate that. So what do you think we're going to have for content? I know that you mentioned that you can't get a resident license for a year.
Right. That's 12 months.
Yeah.
So
I'm aware of how long a year is.
probably well there's the calendar year, and there's the 12 months. There's a couple of distinctions, but it is 12 months for resident. So
Okay.
next summer I'll be able to get a resident hunting and fishing, which will be a substantial savings.
Yeah, I know. I looked
The
at
first year I intend really to do a lot of tagging along, and with the scouting and the camping and so forth, and find out what's where and where we can go, and then probably join into it, you know, next year. We'll see what time gives us, you know, working on the new place to live and all of that. It
Well, I
looks
know
like
we're-
I've got all the work that I could shake a stick at or could ever want, so I can probably in a position where I can be choosy about it. Probably do more, you know, in the winter months, and less in the summer months. Wendy's nodding her head. Yeah, less in the summer, less in the summer.
Good.
So, yeah, no, it looks very, very promising. I've already have go ahead at the transport job to put the GoPro on the front windshield, so I can see, wildlife, and send that stuff over to you, and whatever we happen to find, we find.
Awesome. Well, let's wrap this up. Thanks for tuning into the In the Blind podcast. We appreciate you guys listening to Clem's adventure with his wife across the Alaskan highway. And like I said, be sure to hit that subscribe button, and we will see you next time. All right.
4,705 miles later. Here we go.
Yeah.